Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy the Mad Tiger, and up here today guys, I am here with my first collector's guide, I guess we can call it, of for 2020. In my previous video I talked about some of the things that I'm bearing in mind when doing these videos, and I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to be doing a collecting guide for every single console that I have, namely some of the consoles that I don't really have a lot of stuff for. I'm going to split some of my consoles into like generations. So like when it comes to talking about things like Super Nintendo, I'm going to maybe do like a 16-bit compilation where I talk about all the different 16-bit consoles and so forth. But today guys, I'm going to be talking about a console that really needs no introduction on my channel. You know what I'm talking about. The PlayStation 2. Unfortunately, I can't really take it out and show it all to you. You guys probably know what a PlayStation 2 looks like. If you don't, then I don't know what you've been doing with your life. But in all seriousness, I had to do a video dedicated to collecting for the PlayStation 2. And the reason I'm doing this is because I feel like this is a good starting point as a good starting console to collect for. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, well, it's 2020, do I really want to collect for the PlayStation 2? And hopefully I'm going to change your mind, and if you haven't got a PlayStation 2 and you don't collect for one, hopefully after this video you might change your mind. Now, the first thing you want to bear in mind is the PlayStation 2 is a great system to start collecting for because it is a very cheap console to collect for. You can go on Amazon or eBay or into a CX or anywhere really that sells PlayStation 2s and get one for a pretty decent price. I wouldn't recommend ever paying more than £50 for a PlayStation 2 unless it comes with a bunch of games and accessories and so forth. Like I mentioned in my previous video, shop around, don't stick with one system. Make sure that you're getting the best deal. Don't be getting ripped off. PlayStation 2s are at the point now where they are dirt cheap. Anyone who wants a PlayStation 2 these days can get a PlayStation 2, no problem. You can buy one boxed in CX for like £40. Now, there are a few things I want to talk about with the PlayStation 2 hardware. And the first thing you need to know is there are two models of the PlayStation 2, as well as some experimental models, which I might get into. There is the original fat model and also the slim model. There are some differences in how they work. The fat model obviously uses a disc tray system, whereas the slim model uses a spring-loaded system. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've had 3 slim systems since I started for the PlayStation 2 collecting back like 10 years ago, and my fat model I've only had 1, so that goes to show which ones I prefer. The slim models are smaller, they're easier to set up, but I find that they are a little bit on the more flimsy side, a little bit on the more breakable side, and I feel like the original fat model just has more bulk to it. It's a bit more bulky. Some people don't like that when it comes to consoles. I personally do. It's more sturdy. And it's also important to note that there is something about the slim model, the fat model, that isn't in the slim model, and I'll get to that in a minute. The first thing you want to know about when you start collecting for a PlayStation 2, no matter which version you choose, you're going to need a few things. First of all, you're going to need to get yourself a controller. Most consoles, when you buy a system for, should come with at least one controller. Just be aware though, I've bought about 6 PlayStation 2 controllers in the past 2 years, and only 2 of them that I have work. And that's mostly because when you buy PlayStation 2 controllers or controllers in general, a lot of companies don't actually properly test them. So just be aware of that when you're buying PlayStation 2 controllers. Just be aware that some models and some versions are going to be a bit more flimsy and might not work because they are a little bit older. There are other options out there. There are third-party controllers, there are Bluetooth versions, there are modded controllers. So it doesn't really matter which version of the controller you have, as long as it works. I personally stick to using the normal official controller because it works, and it's one of my all-time favourite controllers. It's one of the few controllers that I don't mind using without asymmetrical. This is a asymmetrical controller for the PlayStation 4, which obviously a lot of people say is like the Xbox One version. This is what I'm used to now when I'm playing games. This is how I normally play games. But with the PlayStation 2, I just find that the normal version, this is the PlayStation 4 controller, but these, it just feels a bit more comfortable with the PlayStation 2. And then there might be a way of getting an asymmetrical PlayStation 2 controller out there, but I don't know. Maybe look that up. Another thing that's important to have is you need to get yourself a memory card. I've just got some PlayStation 1 memory cards here, just for show. But memory cards are really important because if you want to save your games, you need a memory card. But there is something about the PlayStation 2 Fat model that a lot of people aren't really aware of. And that is that the PlayStation 2 Fat model actually had a hard drive space. You could buy a hard drive for it and you could save your games onto your hard drive. You could even install games onto your hard drive like we do with the Xbox Ones and the PS4s nowadays. But I'm going to be honest with you, they are hard to come by, and I feel like some of them are a bit overpriced. I personally stick with a memory card just because a good thing about memory cards is that memory cards have slots in the PlayStation 2 games where you can actually fit your memory card into a PlayStation 2 case. And back in the day, that was really handy because if you had a certain game that needed a lot of space on the memory card, like Gran Turismo 4, you could put it in the case and know where it was. Or if you were going to someone else's house and you wanted to take a save file with you, you could do that. And sometimes it's just easier to keep them in cases so they don't get lost because they are pretty small. And they come in different sizes in terms of how much space they have on them. The most common one is the 8 megabyte one. That is tiny, but bear in mind, save files for the most part are in kilobytes, so you can get a lot on there. The one that I have is, I think, 64. There is 128 one. There are various ones you can get out there, third-party ones and stuff. Don't pay more than £5 for a memory card unless it's like a super memory card. But the hard drive is something that you could get, but it's mostly used for people who mod consoles. So again, if you want to go out and buy yourself a hard drive for the PlayStation 2, fine, but just be aware that you don't need to do that. It's just an optional thing. As well as the PlayStation 2 actually had so many accessories. It's unbelievable how many accessories they had. You had the traditional steering wheels with the pedals, you had the guns, but be aware that if you want to use a G-Con or any form of light gun, you do need a CRTV, which is the fat TV, because they will not work on HD TVs. There were like crazy experimental things like these things called real play, which were like a pool cue. You had fishing rods, you had the glove controller, you had the iToy, which I feel like is one of the all-time greatest accessories for the PlayStation 2, which was essentially a camera. It was a precursor to the Kinect, as we know, and in my opinion almost a precursor to motion controls and VR. So the PlayStation 2 is very influential on that department of really going above and beyond and really trying to bring as much various ways of playing your games as possible. And there are hundreds of options out there for you. You can buy so many of them, you'll come across them, things that you never knew existed, and I do. And a lot of these accessories are dirt cheap as well. You won't pay a lot of money for them, with the exception of like the guns, not the guns, the steering wheel. Now, another thing about PlayStation 2 that you do need to be aware of is that because it's an older system, it's pre-HD. So if you have a CRTV, fine. That is the best way to play PlayStation 2, is on an old CRTV screen using AV out, which with the yellow, red and white thing. Or you could go component. Or if you do want to go HDMI, I recommend using a pound cable. I can't really show it because it's plugged into my PlayStation. Pound cable is essentially something that basically converts your... I don't know if it converts or just changes it into HD. But I use it on my 50-inch 4K TV and it works fine and it looks great. And there are plenty of ways you can mod your console to do HDMI out. There are things like the Retro Kink. There's so many options for audio and visual out there. It's like an experiment, really. If that's your thing, I personally don't really care too much. My pound cable I paid like £20 for, and it does what it needs to do. I can play it on my 4K TV, and they look pretty well. It looks pretty good. Some things are a little bit off, but it's nothing makes it unplayable. It works very well, and it's a pretty cheap option. So I recommend, if you're going to have a PlayStation 2 on a modern TV, just get yourself a pound cable for the time being, and until you want to, you know, go out there and really change things up a little bit. But there's various options out there, so in that department. Now, here's the thing. So, you know, there's also a third PlayStation 2 out there called the Test System, which is basically was used as a debugging console, also as a testing system for testers, but that's also region free. PlayStation 2 is region locked, unfortunately, so if you lived in Japan, you could only play Japanese games. If you live in PAL territories, you can only play PAL games. And if you're in America, you can only play American games, unless you import a console in, or you get one of these modding systems, or you get a test system. There's various colours and various different styles of PlayStation 2s out there. So go ahead, if you want to collect all different shapes and sizes, fine, if that's your thing. Said there's some crazy controllers, like the Resident Evil 4 chainsaw controller is one of the all-time greatest controllers I've ever seen. I wish I had that. I think it was a PlayStation 2. It might have been on a GameCube, but I'm sure it's on PlayStation 2. And yeah, so it is a great system to collect for in terms of hardware and accessories, because there's so much to have and so much to explore. Now, another thing about PlayStation 2 is actually it's a 4-in-1, really. Not only can you play PlayStation 2 games, but you can play PlayStation 1 games. That's right, backwards compatibility. Something we all talk about with the modern systems. When are we going to be able to go back and play these older systems? Okay, it doesn't really matter. Some people care about that, some people don't. I kind of do, but that's not what we're talking about. But you can play PlayStation 1 games on the PlayStation 2. I think there are a few out there that don't work, and some of them might have a few issues, but it's like 95% backwards compatible, which is better than most things these days. And that's something that's really worth mentioning, as well as all of the PlayStation 1 accessories work for the most part. As well as you will need a PlayStation 1 memory card to save the games. That's why I have two. And the PlayStation 1 controllers work on the PlayStation 2 if you want the authentic experience. So two consoles in one. But there are two other things that the PlayStation 2 could do that may not seem that important now, but back in the day, this was quite a big thing. It was a DVD and audio CD player. Yeah, you could play your DVDs on these and your CDs, and it was actually a pretty good DVD player. Nowadays, DVDs, everything has a DVD player. You know, most consoles and PCs and so forth have a DVD player installed in them. And now we live in the day of streaming and digital services. But back in the day, DVD players were expensive. You know, these were 200, 300, maybe even more than £300, and if you had a PlayStation 2, you were kind of great, because you could watch your movies and your TV shows. And to be honest, I tend to use my PlayStation 4, my Xbox One when I watch DVDs. But there are times where, for example, if I want to take a trip down memory lane and watch something that I grew up with, like the Only Fools Horses box set, I might put it on my PlayStation 2 for nostalgia purposes. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's pretty cool. Just something to be aware of if you're looking for a cheap DVD player. A PlayStation 2, it's a 4-in-1. Same with the CDs. You could play your music as well on it. So it was a great thing. It was pretty influential for the time. And things like the Kinect, the things like the iToy, the Gun-Con, the steering wheels, all of these things really help build these modern things that we have today. PlayStation 2 also offered online back in the day. You needed a special cable for it, but you could play online. And there were some games like SOCOM that actually let you get a special headset so you could talk to your friends, which, what do we know? What consoles do that nowadays? Pretty much all of them. So the PlayStation 2 was, in my opinion, one of the most influential consoles growing up, because it had all of these experimental things that are now, you know, common. But back in the day, it was amazing. But that's hardware-wise. What about the games? Well, yeah, I have nearly 1,000 PlayStation 2 games, and I've got to say that if you're one of these people that want to have a system that's dedicated to one kind of genre, then fine. But if you're someone that wants to experiment and really see a world of pure imagination, a world of wonder and whimsicality, I guess, the PlayStation 2 is, in my opinion, one of the best consoles. It has one of the biggest libraries of any console worldwide. It had nearly 4,000 games for it worldwide. But because I said about region locked, only some games come out in America, only some games come out in PAL territory, and only some games came out in Japan. If you want to go through a full collection, just be aware it's not easy. It's one of the harder consoles to get a full collection for. People in America do have full collections of only American games because there was only like 800 or so games released, whereas in PAL territories there was maybe triple that. In Japan and PAL territories had more PlayStation 2 games than the American, and that's mostly because this console did fantastic in PAL territories. There were a lot of games that only came out in some countries like France, Europe, you know, Germany, stuff like that. But the PlayStation 2, in my opinion, is one of the best consoles to collect for, because there is something for everyone. And I'm not going to go into what bring out individual games and show off some of the best games that are worth having, because that's not what this is. And this isn't a buying guide. This is me talking about a console and telling you some of the good things about it, some of the bad things. But the PlayStation 2 just has a massive variety of games. And the best thing about it is that because it has so many games, especially if you're in the PAL territories, this is more for you guys who live in PAL territories. And yes, we did get screwed over on the spines. A lot of people complain about PAL territory games having just a blank spine. I personally don't care. It's what I grew up with. It's what I know. I didn't know that the American spines had colours and artwork on them until I seen it on YouTube. So I never knew any different growing up. So this is what I have, this is what I care, this is what I know. But the best thing about having so many games is you can really customize what you want to collect for. I personally collect everything for the PlayStation 2 because I want to go for a full set one day. But if you're someone that doesn't want to have all the sports games, all of the cheap budget games, then you don't have to do that. There are plenty of games. You've got everything. You know, I've got sports games, I've got racing games, I've got action games, I've got puzzle games, I've got open world games, strategy games, Star Wars games, wrestling games, skateboarding, city building games, party games, you know, experimental games, you know, fighting, every single genre is on PlayStation 2, and there are so many different games that you can get out there, and you come across a game and you think, okay, I don't know a lot about this game, what can I see? There are games on PlayStation 2 that I never thought were on PlayStation 2, like Age of Empires 2, I never knew that was on PlayStation 2, you know, and the best thing about the PlayStation 2 is that I'd say about 65% of the PlayStation 2 games that I have are a good maybe 5 out of 10 rating plus. There are plenty of bad PlayStation 2 games, and I guess that's part of the fun for me, is finding the good ones and not the not so good ones. Again, it's part of the journey. But it is something worth mentioning, is that if you are looking for a console that just has a world of pure imagination and just something for everyone, then the PlayStation 2 is your best friend. You know, I look at my PlayStation 2 collection and I think about some of the games that I had growing up. The Metal Gear Solid games, the Sims games, Star Wars Battlefront 2, the SmackDown vs. Raw games, the Gun, the Kessons, the Dynasty Warriors, the Onimusha, the Devil May Cry, the Call of Duties, you know, the Silent Hills, the Resident Evils, the Dragon Ball Z games, and then, you know, the ones that I had growing up, the Time Splitters, and then I see games that I've never had growing up, like some ones that I've never had growing up. I didn't even realise that I had two free will. Games like Mafia, you know, that I never had growing up. Games like some of the Driver games, the Wild Arms, the Disgaea, the Xeno Crisis, Xenosaga, the Dot Hack games, you know, just so many games, guys. If you want a system that has everything, the PlayStation 2 is my baby, it is my love. I'd marry it if I could, but I don't think that's allowed in this country, and I don't think my partner would be too happy about it. But, you know, and bear that in mind, you've also got the PlayStation 1 as well. So you're getting two systems in one, and even if you want to collect DVDs and CDs, PlayStation 2 is your boyfriend or girlfriend, depending on how you want to look at things. You know, I've never named my PlayStation. Do you know what? I'm going to leave that for you guys. What should I call my PlayStation 2? Everything else has a console name. My Xbox One is called Rose. My PlayStation 4 is called Blackadder. What shall I call my PlayStation 2? I need a name for it. But what I'm trying to get at is PlayStation 2, in my opinion, is a system that is worth collecting in 2020, and things are starting to open up now, guys. Hopefully this time next month, the shops are going to be opening again. So CEX and Game and all of these shops and pawn shop and things and charity shops are going to be reopening. So I might be taking some trips into town over these next couple of months, and maybe we're going to be getting some experimental some more pickups videos. I have added a few games into my Amazon wish list on PS4. Some of them are going to surprise you when I do decide to get them, but I'm getting them for a particular reason. And bear in mind, the PlayStation 2 does have, and another thing that I forgot to mention is that not only is the console cheap, these games are dirt cheap. All these games here, there are 50 games there. You could probably get, and I don't necessarily mean these particular ones, but you could probably get a whole stack of PlayStation 2 games for less than £50, and that's maybe at like £1 a game. It's unbelievable. These are always sold in bundles on eBay, job lots, stuff like that. Even if you're a reseller, fine, if that's your thing, I guess. I have thought about it before, but what I'm trying to say is I've gone into CEX and brought out 2 big bags like this size full of PlayStation 2 games and not even spent more than £50. So just be aware that the PlayStation 2, I'd say about 70% of the PlayStation 2 library is within a good budget. There are some harder to find games out there like Rule of Rose, some of the Dot Hack games that are at least £50+. Rule of Rose is a good £200 game, but every system has some hard to find games on there. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've got maybe 10 or 20 PlayStation 2 games in my collection that are a good £20+ games, and that just goes to show that, yeah, I collect everything for it, but it is a very manageable and great way to build up a collection. If you are looking to collect this year and you are looking to start a collection, the PlayStation 2 is a great way to start because it is budget-wise, it is very cheap to collect for, and you're going to get a good start. There's a majority of things you can do on it. There's so many different options available, and it's 4-in-1 essentially, so you get 4 things in one. But I digress. I could talk about the PlayStation 2 for hours on end, but I just wanted to do this video here today. I'm sorry that I haven't really got anything out and showed you all of these things. Like I said, this isn't a buying guide. This is more of me sharing with you some of the ups and downs of collecting for a thing. I can't really think of anything bad to say about the PlayStation 2. I'm sorry, I can't. It just might be the best console of all time. It's one of the best selling consoles of all time. And there's a reason for that. Because it just dominated. You know, it was weaker than the Xbox. It was weaker than the GameCube. But they don't care. It fucking dominated every single console that was around at the time. It beat the Sega Dreamcast. It beat the GameCube. It beat the Xbox. The PlayStation 2 was still going when the Xbox One came out. One of the last games on PlayStation 2 was FIFA 14, which came out in 2013. By then, the Xbox One was out. That just goes to show this console lived for about 13 years. And why? Because it just never gave up, and it gave us some of the best memories growing up. And if you want to relive those memories and you don't have a PS2, then what are you waiting for? Go out and buy a PS2 because it is a fantastic console. There is so much you can explore, so much you can do with it. And hopefully you guys, this will change your mind on the PlayStation 2. And I'm not saying that any other console of that era is not worth your time. I will get into those consoles throughout these coming weeks. But I just wanted to start with a console that I know and love. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We're a bit back on track now, so if you did, feel free to leave a like and, of course, comment below. Let me know what you think about the PlayStation 2. Do you like these videos? Do you want to see more? Is there something you want to see, a particular console you want me to talk about? And is there anything you could add to these videos? And as always, subscribe if you haven't already and join the family. I'm going to play some more PlayStation 2 tonight. Finish off all the extra modes on Revenge of the Sith. I did beat the story mode again, so I'm just going to do all the other extra missions and then move on to something else. And as always, guys, follow me on Twitter, Mixer and Instagram @TheMadKaiger and join the family. And as always, have a nice day, and I will see you in the next video. Take care and bye bye.